What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore, and we do that by highlighting the practitioners that make this the best field in athletics. And as you know, this is for strength coaches of every category: high school, college, pro, tactical, or in the private setting. And today we're going to kind of dive into that private setting. So, Luke, Josh, thank you both for coming on. There are tons of other things you could be doing right now, but you're here with us. Thank you.
No, Justin, thank you. We really appreciate you having us on. This is always a fun thing for me and Luke to be able to hop on these and kind of share our story and what we do here. And we appreciate you having us on for sure.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just jump right into you guys' story. Let's give everybody some background and context, because we've been, talking now for like over 2 months,
Right.
so we're a little bit more familiar. But let's fill all of our listeners in on your guys' backstory.
Yeah, so real quick, my name's Josh Richardson. I'm the owner of Velocity Athlete Development here in Canton, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. But Justin, you and I connected through kind of our own backgrounds of playing offensive line, and that's kind of how we started here at Velocity Athlete Development almost 8 years ago now, where we were training athletes just from an offensive line technical perspective. And over these 8 years, we've expanded and grown into much more. So, we work with all types of athletes, not just offensive linemen anymore, multiple positions, whether it's O-line, D-line, tight end, and so on. But we're also working with baseball players, and under our performance model that Luke helped design and build for us here at Velocity, we're working with athletes outside of that space too, whether it's basketball, volleyball, softball. So it's been something that's been a lot of fun, and 8 years has grown into something very unique, and super proud that we've been able to make this journey be a success for us as well as all of our clients for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's doing high performance in the private sector is something that people have talked to me about, and it sounds like that's exactly what you guys are doing. Like, Luke, talk about what does that performance design look like for you? And he mentioned it there and kind of teed it up. Why don't you hit that ball off the tee into the fairway?
Yeah. So our performance is kind of all over the place. Like Josh was saying, we work with a variety of different sports. We do everything from NFL Combine to the softball stuff, which are very, very, very different athletes. But the one thing that's really important to us when it comes to performance is making great decisions, using tech in the private sector, and then trying to have that high performance model, like you were just saying. We have PTs on staff. We use a ton of different tech, from force plates to lasers, jump mats, body fat testing, everything that you can think of on that side, and then rounding it out with the technical side and that positional development as well. So when it comes to performance, our big thing is making sure athletes move well and they're healthy through this process. So that's kind of the really high level when it comes to performance. Everything is so different for us. Working with the softball girl, that requires a lot different than working with the NFL Combine guys, especially when it comes to offensive linemen. Those are very, very different athletes.
One of the things that I wrote down as you were talking about that is, like, how do you stay in contact? How do you stay connected with these players, when they're with you in the off season? And so anybody listening right now, it's the end of August, 2024. So they're, people trained with you during the NFL, and like we said off air, there's going to be some cuts and people coming back and forth. But for those athletes that, made a roster and they hadn't been around, how do you stay in touch with them? How do you, keep your pulse on them, the ability to work with them? Like, how does that work for anybody that's not familiar?
So I'll kick it off first, and then I'll let Luke get a little bit more granular with it. I think it all starts with how you develop culture in your gym, right? Developing relationships with athletes, developing the trust with the athletes, and that they want to stay in contact with you. They're obviously going to be provided with a ton of resources with whatever organization that they are with, whether it's the collegiate level, high school, or even the NFL level. But by our ability to be able to work with these guys through the off season, help them achieve their dreams and their goals through this process, they put a lot of trust in us, where they want to continue to communicate with us. The reality is they're going to spend so much time with us, Justin, is that we understand what they're going through. We understand the mental side of it, the physical side of it, what they're dealing with at home, the pressures that they're dealing with. We learn that through the relationships and the culture that we've developed here with our athletes. And then it just allows us to be able to earn that right athlete to be able to maintain that relationship throughout their season or wherever they're at from an organizational level. And then, like I said, Luke, if you want to kind of share, I know he's on the phone in constant contact with a lot of our athletes as well, just in making sure that they're getting what they need, even if it's just a conversation.
Yeah, like Josh was saying, especially when it comes to college and pro athletes, that line has been blended a little bit more now, and guys feel like they kind of have a safe haven with us, so they can ask us questions, they can ask us second opinions. Hey, check out this, check out that. What do you guys think on this? Anything from sprained ankles. Hey, what do you think? You got any good suggestions? To can you look over my film and do some film work with us? As working with pro athletes, a second opinion is really important to them. They want somebody who's not, going to cut them or fire them, to give them some opinions sometimes. And that's something that we can offer from the performance side, anything down to, hey, can you shoot me a little recovery program that I can do on a Sunday, all the way to, hey, I need you to help me prepare for this game. And I got to go play against, this guy this week. So, really just trying to stay in contact with guys is really important, with that second opinion, like Josh was just talking about.
And Justin, with technology, this. I mean, it's become that much easier. Whether it's a Zoom call, a Teams call, we can hop on these, like Luke said, and kind of piggyback on. There's a lot of these athletes will end up just pulling up their video, right? Let's look at game film. Help me prepare. Let's look at some practice film. Where are the gaps that I have? Those are things that we can offer, and that what we do with our athletes, so that we stay connected and helping them out throughout the year, and not just on one part of the season, for sure.
Is communication with their strength coach at either the NFL level, college level, whatever the sport they're playing, is that something that you guys will also do to be like, hey, okay, let's help really reverse engineer this whole thing? Like, what are they going to do when they get back in camp? Like, to be able to work that symbiotic relationship and, transparency of care, or handling of care from, one person to the next, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Luke, if you want to share.
Yeah. I think it's a two-way street. It really depends on the organization and the team and the guy and what they want to do as well. Of course, like all the pro guys, they'll shoot over all their documents and they're like, hey, what do you think about all this? And then they can, send that back to their strength coach and work on this, and this. Or if we need to contact them, we'll do that as well. And same with the college level.
Justin, for example, I mean, we want to have a two-way communication line, right? Because again, we're not going to be with them year round, and it's not something that happens a lot. I'll be honest with you, it just doesn't. But we're open to it, where we want to share what we're doing with the athlete. We document a ton of information here while we're working with the athlete, whether it's just simple data or video work, so that we would be ready to share with organizations that information. It tends to happen more in the transition from high school to college. We do a lot of what we call is college prep. So as athletes have already signed their letter of intent, we're working with them from a college prep standpoint, and we document a lot of that information, and then we share it with their strength team and their position coaches, and they appreciate that. At the collegiate level, at the pro level, it's not happening as much, but it's definitely something, a relationship that I see value in. Just doesn't happen a ton.
Keeping your certification is essential to staying hired as a strength and conditioning coach. Both of our long-form courses, Fundamentals 1 and Fundamentals 2, offer CEUs to the NSCA, the NCSF, as well as the ASCA professional development points. Click the link down below to learn more about our education courses, which are both over 20 hours long and allow you to learn from some of the best practitioners in the field of strength and conditioning.
Sure.
That makes sense. As you said, down there, like in Georgia, where you guys are located, for anybody that's listening not down there, talk about how amped up is sports down there, because in the outside world people see it, but like if you could speak to it, because we've got listeners all over the country, and maybe they're in that situation and they need some advice from those that they're in that day to day.
Yeah, of course. I mean, here in Georgia, we're in the hotbed of SEC, right? So let's just start with football. It's absolutely huge. I can give perspective because I've been all over the Midwest. I lived in Detroit. I lived in Chicago, Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis. I was all over there. And then about 12 years ago, moved down here. So I got a good perspective, understand what that looks like there compared to here. Now, sport is big wherever you're at, right? I mean, that's the reality. People love their game. But it just seems so different down here when it relates to football, which we're highly in, and then baseball and softball. I mean, those sports are just off the chain down here in Georgia. It's a constant year-round business. but it's also, where these kids are starting at a younger age. There's way more resources. There's, way more opportunities to continue to develop down here. And you see it. You see a lot of these athletes developing at a quicker rate down here because of that access to more resources and knowledge. I would also say Atlanta is just a unique situation. Just like a lot of different larger metropolitan areas, you get a lot of athletes, former athletes that move here, retire. They love to live in the Southeast and the Atlanta area, and their offspring is down here that are growing into crazy athletes. We call them aliens anymore. As these guys are just unique beasts, right? Genetic freaks. So, it is different, but it's year round down here, and it's unique in the sense of what's available to them that I've learned since I've been down here.
You see the same thing, Luke, down there?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane with how sports are in the South. We can give a great example. We work with one team. They have 3 Power 5 tight ends on their team, which is absolutely insane. 2 of the tight ends are 6'6", and the other one is 6'3". And that's just one team. It's almost when we just talk football, it's like, oh, you only have 2 or 3, Power 5 kids on your team. You guys might, win 5 or 6 games. That's it. You really got to stack a crazy roster to win a state championship down here, and it really makes sports super interesting. When it comes to baseball, when it comes to softball, a team locally a couple years ago, they had 3 kids throwing 90 plus in baseball, which is insane. We have Lake Point, which is not too far from us, and that's nationally known, as well as Perfect Game is about 15 minutes from us. So, from a baseball perspective, it's a hotbed. From a softball perspective, it's a hotbed. And then the football perspective, everybody knows about Georgia football right now, especially.
I mean, great example of this, Justin. Just 2 weeks ago, you had 2 local teams here, Buford High School and Milton High School. And between the 2 schools, they had over 30 plus FBS D1 offered kids already between those 2 programs. I mean, it's just, and I can go down a list of multiple schools. It's just not 2 of them. So it's an interesting location. It's a lot of fun, though, for sure.
One of the things that I wrote here was then how do you guys approach and how do you see this long-term athletic development model going? Like, where can it go considering, like you guys both just said, so many different opportunities and the growing business of it all? How do we respect, the maturation of the athlete and all the growth hormones and the growth that they're going through, like the developmental, doing what's right for them and not giving them a program that's like too hard, as we've said here in Strength Coach Network, like you're robbing them twice. They didn't need it right away, and then what do you give them when they needed that program? So how do you both approach that?
Yeah, so the LTAD model is something I think that's super important in the private sector, even as opposed to anything else that would use that. But for us, we start kids from 3rd to 5th. And that's, a completely different training approach than when you talk a high school kid. But having that entire approach for a parent is huge. They get that 3rd through 5th. They're being kids. They're running around. They're playing games. We're not throwing them on force plates. They're having fun. And then you get, a little bit older. Now you're in middle school. You can, organize the training a little bit more. They can finally have somewhat of a little bit of training. They can sprint. They can have a whole sprint section, which, is not just sprinting, like you would a high school kids. Like sometimes, hey, let's just run through these lasers as fast as we can. Let's see who gets the best time. That's super simple, but it's a way to start introducing them to competition. And then, we get a little bit of power still throwing some stuff, teaching them that they can produce force and it's okay to throw something hard. It's okay to jump hard. It's okay to be the best kid when it comes to power, and then introducing strength. And strength is, relative. Strength's really an expression more than anything. And so trying to get them to learn how to move their body in a couple different ways, and a bunch of different planes of motion with strength in that middle school. Finally, when we get to high school, now they're actually, starting to mature a little bit. Now we can get them into something a little bit more developed when it comes, especially that 9th, 10th grade kid. They have a really true program at that point. Now we're sprinting. Now we're in a true power program. Now we're in a true strength program. And then when we talk, 11th, 12th, and then that transitional period, now we're starting to track sprints. We're starting to track jumps. We're starting to force plate them. We're starting to actually get them into a college-like model. And that transitions right into our college athletes. Now those guys are training to win and training to be competitive. So force plates, full strength program, full VVT program, all the velocity decrement that stuff, and then getting him on the jump mat as well, and then into our pro athletes, which is kind of like a weird transition. The earlier guys, we can put them in a full strength program, a full power program, a full speed program, and as guys get older and their bodies get beat up a little bit, now it kind of looks like fancy rehab with a little bit of strength, power, and speed thrown in there. So really having that full model is important, because that allows us to talk to a parent, talk to a kid, and plug them into any one of those sections that we need them to be in at that time. And we can move up and down depending on how mature they are. For a great example, we have a kid. He was in 7th grade last year, just got into 8th grade a couple weeks ago, and school started. He's 6'5", 260, and he is a full-grown adult. So he is not ready for a middle school program. He's closer to that 11th grade, 12th grade, just based on how old his body is. He moves super well. He's super coordinated. He's super switched on mentally. It's not like you're talking to an 8th grade kid. He's a little bit more developed, so we can move him up or down in that ladder as we see fit with the LTAD
model. Something that one of the ancillary things was I feel you on the the younger athletes, because at the private sector place that I train athletes out of as well, like some of our sprint work, like one day literally Tucker, who's in charge of the entire program, my boss, is we were doing the sprint was, all right, somebody's behind you and they have like a dodgeball and you have to run, like they can either hit you with the ball or if the ball gets to the line first. So like teaching the athlete to run fast to avoid getting hit, or to avoid like get there faster than somebody can throw it. Right. And it's like, all right, we're not going to push a sled, but like you can push a box on the turf and somebody's sitting on it. Like that's some good strength training in. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr has been my online software platform choice since 2019. Been using it at Towson, using it at Goldfinch, and use it with my online remote clients. You can learn more about them in the link down below. TeamBuildr is also part owner in the Plyomat, which will allow you to get quick, valid, and reliable jump data, jump height, ground contact time, and reactive strength index in just seconds. They are part owner of Plyomat, so you can check them out in the link down below as well. Because I've always I get the question, and I'm sure you guys do too, like, oh, when can my kids start to train? Like I was doing an event at my church for Vacation Bible School. One of the fellow volunteers was like, hey, when can my kid lift with me? The kid was 5. And I'm like, well, I mean, your kids aren't running, jumping when they're on the playground. So it's like, do you need a bar on their back? No, but like you could do some type things. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was saying, strengths and expression. Sometimes it's like, hey, old school, let's go pick up all these heavy balls and let's see who can move them the fastest over here. That could be the strength training for the day, or, okay, even we have the little big pop-ups, with the big sand thing, like like you see on the field. All right, let's see who can drag these the fastest across the field. That could be strength as well. So strength, if you think about it as an expression, especially for the younger guys, really helps us in developing our LTAD model, so that the parents feel like, oh, they are getting some strength, and then we can progress them as needed, and slowly get more and more and more organized as they get older, and more into more of like a true strength model, and then stacking on more of the power, more of the speed, and everything else that comes with that.
And Justin, I think that's where we've really been able to excel. I mean, from the young kids all the way up, we're dealing with athletes, right? These guys love to compete. These girls love to compete. It doesn't always have to be just a strength training program. It could be play like this. We can make those things happen through an environment that's fun, that's competitive, where these kids, I mean, name it. It's as simple as just throwing trash in a garbage can. Who could do it the best, right? They want to compete, right? But that brings them back. They want to continue to come back, and they're starting to see the successes out on the field because of the work that they put in here, which they believe is just play.
Hearing you talk too before about that, Luke, I wrote down, had you ever looked into the academy setting from Europe? Because like that's kind of where I've done a lot of learning through Strength Coach Network on it, because we've had presentations inside of there back when Kier owned it, and his UK presence with different coaches in that academy setting. Had you looked into any of that to be able to help you with the global big picture performance design that Josh talked about at the beginning?
Yeah. The Europe, as kind of everybody knows, is way ahead of us when it comes to performance, especially with their LTAD stuff. They get kids in and they have them when they're super young, and it's like, okay, you might be something, and then they take them through a whole academy setting. So totally, that's something that as a basis, starting the process and being like, okay, like this is something new. This is something that really isn't in America yet. It's getting more and more and more, obviously, as people have gotten better and better. But totally, yeah, we looked into the academy setting, whether it's with soccer or rugby, or any of the other sports that are offered over there when it comes to that full, young kid to professional level model.
What do you guys think, building off what you just said, what do you guys think is new / next in strength and conditioning? Because something that we've, I talked about with Joseph Johnson, and he was the one that brought it up. But he's like, what has been the earth-shattering new thing in strength and conditioning in the last couple of years? He's like, there isn't one. And, it made me think, and I dived down these rabbit holes, like, where do you see it going? Like, what is the next big thing, or is it that we're reinventing the wheel and taking something from back in the day where guys like Bob Alejo say, well, tell me what you call it now and I'll tell you what it used to be called. Like the Hatfield squat got super popular, but it's like, well, remember the guy had done it that long. Like you see what I'm saying as I'm rambling here? Like, what do you think is kind of going to be new for coaches to be ahead of the curve instead of just reactive?
Yeah. Like we were saying, things getting renamed, shock training to plyometrics. Like, that's an easy one, that most coaches have seen before. I think that things will be reinvented, and we'll learn how to use all the technology that we currently have in a better way. And don't, get to the point where we're just looking at all these numbers and, we have analysis by paralysis almost, where there's all these numbers, there's all these different things, we don't know how to use it. And I think that would be the next iteration of things. You see more and more teams, more and more people bringing on sports science departments, especially here in Georgia. I don't know how many other states have it, but a lot of teams have a pseudo sports science department, if you want to call it that. They're using catapults. They're starting to use tendos. Some teams even, have 5 full-time strength coaches here. That's completely an anomaly. But I think that would be the next phase, is more of that LTAD model, working all the way up, all the way down, finding markers that, hey, this kid is getting separated from this kid, and what's the reason why? So more on the tech side, but also learning how to use the tech without just using the tech. I think that's where we can get really, really skewed, is if you're just staring at the sheets all the time and you don't know how to coach it. You got to be able to do both. So a great blend of the tech side and being able to be personable and coach it on the fly and say, you know what, okay, we're using tendos this day, we're using them, and then you know what, like this is only hindering you right now. Let's just take it off and you're just gonna squat. Like we're just gonna go completely by feel, and you use your coach's eye at that point. So I think a blend, and being able to use the tech, understand programming, understand coding, understand athlete management systems and everything that comes with that. But at the same time, being able to coach it and then finding the correct markers for the littler kids, in the middle school realm, that's like, okay, what separates this kid from this kid? Kind of like we were talking about the academy setting.
How about you, Josh?
I obviously agree with Luke. I'm the old school guy, right? Especially building a business. I want to be, what's the next new shiny thing do we need to throw out to get someone to come in here? And, Luke had to pull me back several times to say, it's not about the next new shiny thing. It's about doing the things that have been done a long time and doing it well and making sure that the communication and that the kids understand the why and what they're doing. Because ultimately we can go after all these next new things, but if we just do the things that we've been doing for years very well, we optimize them, utilize new things like technology to optimize those things and make them more efficient, and then help in the communication phase of it, we're going to have a lot of success. So you're not going to see any brand new fancy things outside of the tech here, with how we perform and train our athletes, but you're going to see success come from it for sure. And I think I'm not even going to quote anybody, but someone had said, sometimes we're going to bore you with success, right? So it's not going to be something new and exciting, but man, we're going to work at this. We're going to understand your gaps, and we're going to bring those gaps up to the successes that you currently have. And overall, you're going to be a better athlete because of it.
You talked about the business side of it there, and one of the things that I wrote earlier in the conversation was, you expanded from, mainly offensive linemen to more and more. And as I said in the beginning of the show, we have listeners that do work in the private sector. And maybe
Right.
that was like, hey, okay, what is your key to success? Because like we niched down, but now we want to grow. Like, what are some, fundamental keys to success for that? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Hawkin Dynamics. I've had Hawkin Dynamics for multiple years, dating back to my time at Towson, and still utilize them here at Goldfinch when I'm training athletes in Iowa. Hawkin Dynamics makes it simple to be able to get input to find out what's going on underneath the hood with your athletes. Whether it's lower body assessment, upper body assessments, you want reliable data to find out how the athlete is putting force into the ground so you can be able to accurately return an athlete from an injury, and you can also find out how the athlete is producing force to check how your training is working. Check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below.
Well, I think the product has to be good, right? I mean, what you're doing with the athletes, you've got to show a proven, consistent success line with each one of these athletes. I share this with each one of my employees, at least, here locally. When we're working with an athlete, we're in the people business. We're not in the sports business. We're not in the training business. We're in the people business. You got to be able to connect with people. You got to be able to get and pull from them what you need to be able to make the gains that they need to have out of it. And that starts with our people. I'm convinced, and it's a cliche, but the secret sauces of my people here in this gym being able to connect with the athlete, and then the product comes next. And we've been able to develop that product over the years to be extremely successful. To your point, that niche part of our business was great, and we've been able to expand super quick because of it. But we were challenged, especially from an NFL perspective. Our athletes loved what we do, but the agencies were coming to us say, "Hey, can you do more?" Well, yeah, we can actually provide the performance side of it because they wanted to send their guys to us for NFL prep, and we didn't have that model. So again, I charged Luke with the task of developing that performance program, and he did an amazing job, right? So now not are we only providing the performance and the technical side of it, but now the performance side, and then we start bolting on everything else from physical therapy to nutrition to recovery, all those other things, and what we like to call the 360-degree experience for our athletes. All those things are great and anybody can do it, but if you can't connect with the athlete and you can't help inspire them and you can't build that trust and loyalty in them, you're not going to expand very quickly at all.
How hard is that to do in today's, when you're in the private sector trying to build that trust, and you want to speed it up, but you can't help the caterpillar get out of that cocoon or whatever it is before they become the butterfly? Like, how do you speed it up but still respect the fact that like it still has to go through the process, and you can't just wish it to happen?
Right. I think that's it. It's all about patience, right? We were fortunate enough to get in at a time, at least within our niche space, that there wasn't a lot of offensive line training facilities out there. So we were very lucky. You look at it now across the spectrum, there's a whole bunch more that are opening up at this point. The one thing that I said, if we were going to win, it was going to be consistency, because there's a lot of people that want to get into this space but ain't willing to put in the work. They're not going to be there on Sundays with the athletes, right? A lot of these guys are amazing football players that have, whether they retired from the NFL or not, decide to get into the space and could really help out kids. The problem with is they start off, they're there, the kids are having a great experience. The next thing you know, they're flying to Hawaii with their buddies, right? Because they have the money to be able to do that, and then they're not there for the kids. So it took time. It wasn't something that happened overnight. Even though we were one of the first to market to be able to do it in the space, we had to be here consistent. The reality is, Georgia football is big here. A lot of coaches were really like, "Hey, don't come around here and mess up what I've been working on. I don't know who you guys are," right? So it took a long time for us to be able to develop, that loyalty, or not the loyalty, but the respect and confidence in people to be able to start sending people to us. And the people that did in the beginning benefited from it, and then everybody started seeing the success come from it, and then it snowballed for us. And to be honest with you, COVID was a big win for us. And I hate to say that, but as gyms shut down, right? The NFL guys were Zoom calling. They weren't on their organization's practice fields. College kids were being sent back. They couldn't be there on the university's campuses. And because we were such a niche gym here in Georgia, we were able to stay open, right? So as kids came in, was working, obviously leveraged the success in our platforms of social media. People started to see it. It's a small world that we live in. As you know, these kids are seeing their friends doing it. They're like, "Man, that looks fantastic. You look like you're doing great. I want to come in and have a piece of that." And it was really cool because it was very organic in the sense we started with some young kids from a football perspective, and then went to high school and then college and the NFL. But organic in the sense that these guys stuck around and worked with the next group under, right? So our high school kids wanted to stick around, work with the middle school kids. The college kids wanted to stick around, work with the high school kids. The NFL guys wanted to stick around. It is just a culture thing. It's a family-like environment here, and that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. I would say in anybody's business, you got to be consistent and you got to be patient. Otherwise, and just like anything else, it's just not going to happen overnight for you.
I have a question for you again, Josh, before I have to piggyback off to ask you, Luke, how, when you were, dealing with the fact of like, okay, there's been success here at Georgia, with respect to football, they don't want you to mess with it. In that process of building, the leadership equity with them, were you doing things that were conceding your stance, doing things that you maybe didn't personally believe in? Oh, we don't need to do that exercise, or we don't need to do that conditioning. Like, were you conceding things to gain their trust? If so, what were they? How difficult was it? What piece of advice would you give to anybody?
No, I would say we stuck to our guns.
Really?
We believed in the process. We believed in what we were doing. I think what helped us is being able to educate. I think the right thing is how you approach individuals, and how you share your story with them. It's not in a way that I know more than you. I just share what I know and what I do and how it helps and how it works. And the individuals that bought in typically are the better coaches that we've seen in the past. The guys that are having success are like, hey man, I want to hear this, help me out. And they're taking notes. And even to this day, we're super proud. We have college coaches from all over the United States, when they're traveling for recruiting, stop by our gym, and they share and we share. And it's a mutual thing. It's a mutual trust. But getting back to your question, I mean, that's what it was. It was just like, let us show you what we do. Let us show you how it helps. The kids that were working with us were going back and having a ton of success. And it just gets to the point that it's the obvious choice, right? I mean, these kids are winning, they're having success, they're getting scholarship offers. I want to learn a little bit more about it. They're asking more questions. They may challenge things on Twitter or Instagram, and you got to be there to answer those questions. If they're there to say, I don't understand what you're doing here, this doesn't make sense, you have to do it in a way that doesn't seem like it's a negative response, but it's, hey, I understand your point. Let me help you understand what we're doing here and how this helps. And I think that just opened people's minds and helped us be able to make that transition a little bit quicker for us.
So piggybacking off that, Luke, when you get brought into this and it's running well, how do you adapt it, make it better? Because, some of our listeners might come into a program where taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Vitruve VBT. With Vitruve, you can accurately measure what speeds your athletes are moving the bar. No longer do you have to program simply based on sets and reps. You can program for your more mature athletes based on the velocities that they are hitting. You can accurately measure at a great price with Vitruve, and you can have this integrate with your TeamBuildr, making it simple so you no longer have to write down the recorded reps from other devices. Everything in one place with Vitruve VBT. Check them out in the link down below. They either came off the success of, prior good strength staff, or in a situation like yours, like how do you improve but not change what success got somebody to be in a successful situation? Like, that's not easy to do either.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's completely individualized based on the kids that we're working with and the program that that they're coming from. I think one thing, especially in high school, that is very underlooked is sprint training and speed training. A lot of people just don't have time. They go in there, they lift, they hammer down the lift, and they move on. And that's, what they can get done with their class period or whatever other situation that they're in. So speed has been a big one for us. And then power has been another big one for us. Those are kind of two aspects that, hey, I mean, if you only got 60 minutes, I would hammer strength too. That's all you got. And it's really hard to get all the speed work you need in. And it's really hard to get all the power work you need in. So piggybacking off, great strength and conditioning coaches here in the state. That's really kind of where we can help backfill on some of the kids that, hey, they need a little bit more speed work. They haven't sprinted in 2 weeks, or, hey, they haven't done any power work in 2 weeks, or it's, we're going to hit 10 box jumps and then right into strength. But if you only got 60 minutes, strength's the best thing to hit. They can only do what they can do at the high school level. So our goal is really just to help, where can we assist? Is it with the speed? Is it with the power? Or is it with the strength in some cases? And not strength as in we're just going to keep back squatting guys if they've already back squatted at school. It's like, where's the things that we can get in? We can get in some single leg work in. We can get in some rowing. We can get in some little things here and there, that might not look like strength, but it's more like strength PT, making sure that guys are healthy, they're moving well, a lot of mobility work. So that's where we find that we can really help out a lot of high school kids in our area.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And again, it does sound like what we do over at Goldfinch too, because it's like, all right, these guys are coming in, we know they're training, but hey, you know what they're not doing? They're not hitting as much post chain. They're not doing, a lateral lunge, a rotational lunge, ankle specific work. Like, let's make sure that we're addressing the areas that are going to get overlooked because, there's a lot of things going on when you try to train a high school athlete with all the demands they have. What how do you respect the paralysis that may potentially come with technology, whether it be the kids, the coaches, or even parents? Because parents want to see success for their kids, and it's like, how do you handle that duality of, let's use the tech, but let's not get overly consumed by it. Kids are younger, they already have their hand in tech, so they're overly loving it. Like, how do you respect that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it goes down to, like we were saying earlier, coaches getting smarter about what things are to look for. For example, anybody who's had any experience with force plates, when you start pulling up all the data on force plates, it gets extremely overwhelming extremely quickly. But if okay, we're going to look for this metric, and this metric are important for us. That's the only things that you're really looking at. Another thing that we do as well is we really dumb it down to whoever the stakeholder is in that situation. We're not going to just absolutely overload them with all these charts and numbers and everything. It's like, hey, look, they came in, they jumped 15 inches, and now they're jumping 19 inches. And we have all the numbers to prove it. It's like, here's where their little track was. Here's their graph, and you can see them getting better over time. And that's really helped to eliminate some of that paralysis almost when it comes to the tech on our side as coaches. We use it as we need, and we all know all the data behind it. But really just trying to dumb it down to them to what's the number that matters. If we're sprinting, did you get faster in your 10, for example? Or are you jumping a little bit higher? Or are you lifting a little bit heavier weight? Another one that we use a lot, like I was saying, is the VBT stuff. Especially with our college prep class, we fully force velocity profile all of our guys for every single lift. And we do that by hand. So that way each guy can go back and look, and they can scroll through their sheet and they say, you know what, I moved 315 at 0.5, and now today I moved it at 0.7. It's like, great, you move that faster. And that really helps alleviate some of that. What does all these numbers mean? Why are you guys taking so many numbers on some stuff? And it really makes it easier for them, to have little wins too, just like that. Or even in the same, let's say we have 4 sets and we're using the jump mat. Their first set was 15. The next time they come around, it's like, okay, your best was 15 on this. Now their best was 16 too, and they can easily see them improving in the workout as well as, over time.
I mean, that's shout out to rest in peace Louis Simmons when he said, like, hey, he had all those different 1RMs for everybody on, like, shoulder saver bar plus chain 3 rep max. Good morning. They're like, oh, you're not feeling it today. Like, let's go for a 5 rep max so it'll be less weight. And oh, look, you hit a PR. Like, continuing to keep the athlete positive and giving them wins is just, it's that important that it's been around that long.
Yeah. And the thing too, as strength coaches, we love strength, we love power, we love speed. It's awesome. But their biggest thing is they're using this to get better at their sport. Yep. So we're not the front and center. We are completely a tertiary piece in their sports development. And getting them to compete within a program, or them feeling like they're having more fun, or hey, I can come in and I know what numbers I gotta hit today. I gotta jump. I know we're gonna do verts. I gotta jump 18 or whatever it is. That really helps to increase the buy-in. Like you were saying, kids have their hand in tech. Everybody knows how to use an iPhone now. And it makes it a little bit easier, and it's a little bit easier to relate to sometimes. Some kids, it's like, okay, we're gonna jump on these boxes, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And then you put a jump mat in front of them, and it's got a screen, and next thing you know, everybody's jumping way higher. And that's the biggest thing. If we're not getting better outputs or better buy-in from our athletes, we will not use the tech. That's it. It all is about buy-in and all about output, and that's the biggest thing for us. For a great example of that is we have a pocket radar, and we'll do a ton of med ball throws and sandbag throws and everything else. We'll throw everything at this big wall we got in the gym, our power wall. And if I feel like somebody doesn't have enough buy-in that day, I'll go grab the pocket radar, and you got to hit 25 miles an hour or it won't show up. There'll be no reading on the pocket radar. So that instantly gets us a lot better output. And that's a simple piece of tech that we can use to help just increase outputs. And that's the whole goal, is how do we get better outputs? How do we get better buy-in? That way we can really help these kids be better at their sport in the end. Because if you're really, really good in the weight room and you're really, really terrible at your sport, then we didn't do anything to help you out.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Sleep Me. Sleep Me are the makers of the Chili Pad, which has been my bed cooling device since 2020. Chili Pad will allow you to sleep and not wake up hot anymore. This was something that I had to worry about. I used to have the air conditioning down way too low. Now, I don't have to have the air conditioning as low because my Chili Pad, my Dock Pro, keeps my bed cold at night. Check out Sleep Me, check out the Chili Pad, check out the Dock Pro in the link down below. That's a clippable moment right there. Like, with respect, we've talked a lot about football, and because of my background, but like baseball, softball, you guys both talked about how important it is down there, and our listeners work in multiple sports, and you did just talk about the main thing being good at your sport. What are some recommendations, best practices for working with those populations where they throw a lot, and maybe the weight room might have a contraindication by some of the sport coaches because I don't want to get big and bulky. Like, I know that used to be the thing back in the day, but if some coaches still prescribe to that, like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. I think that's a tough one. Of course, naturally, like especially the baseball and softball populations, they're not used to the weight room. I think it's slowly changing as kids, go to college, and next thing you know, they're thrust into a full strength and conditioning program, or they go to the minors or the big leagues or whatever situation that kid's in. They get thrust into a full strength and conditioning program. It's a real deal strength and conditioning program. To throw 90 miles an hour, you got to be pretty big and pretty strong. I think people underestimate how big some of these MLB dudes actually are. You look at some of these third basemen and they're 6'4", 240. It's like that guy could go play middle linebacker somewhere. That's
tight end. Just
yeah. That's a lot of these MLB dudes are massive. I got my first kind of indication at that. I was never a baseball kid. I played football. I played at the University of Louisville, like Josh said, and our baseball program came in one day, and I had never seen our baseball program ever. I was a football kid. I'd never seen high level baseball. I bounced around a bunch of different schools, so I'd never seen it. And then next thing you know, our baseball team walks in, and they're all 6'4" and 230 pounds. And I'm like, holy shit, these guys are massive. And that really kind of set the bar for me and really changed the level set, and I think that it's become less and less of an issue with kids wanting to lift weights and especially do speed, especially do power. One of our biggest tricks or hacks or whatever you want to call it is sprinting, throwing athletes. That's our big secret, and it's not even a secret. Everybody's doing it at the high level, but sprinting those athletes and getting them more explosive and not just one plane, but a ton of different planes is really important.
Yeah. Baseball players, at Towson, they clanged and they banged. Like, they loved to lift heavy. And so, like, when you can get around that, it's fun and it's good to see, because at the other end of the spectrum, like, my cousin played professional baseball and he literally did the same training he wouldn't really change it, but it was also because he was a relief pitcher and he didn't know when he'd train. And so, like, you can dive into that whole minutia, and that could be its own episode.
Yeah. I think as kids too, see guys, and social media, as bad it is sometimes, all the kids are on it and they're starting to see these guys, lift weights, and, a lot of guys have their own, TikToks or Instagrams or YouTubes or whatever, and they do their own vlogs. They see these guys go out there and lift weights, and that's become a little bit more of a known fact as kind of sports and social media and everything else has evolved.
And to add to that, Justin, again, we're fortunate enough being where we're at that we get to deal with a lot of high-end athletes across multiple sports. But we also get teams in here. Travel baseball, travel softball is obviously really huge, especially here in Georgia. And these teams understand that at a young age. We got a 10U team that these girls are absolute machines, right? When they come in, they're young, they're 10U, right? But they're playing around, they're yelling and everything. But when it's time to work, man, they flip the switch and they understand it's time to get to work across every facet, whether it's the baseball, batting cages for us, or in the performance, lifting weights and running and all those different things. I mean, they get it around here. And then again, as we work with our older, higher elite athletes, these kids are coming in and seeing those guys doing the same things that they're doing, and they understand the buy-in happens very quickly here, for sure.
That's awesome. A question that I've been starting to ask and sending out a survey to coaches is, what do you think? Should our title be strength coaches or sports performance? Like, what do you think and why? Let's start with you first, Josh.
Listen, I'm indifferent. Be honest with you. Probably more important that you guys have a say in this. I would probably say performance. Again, we get a lot of parents, that will come in that just a lot of misinformation. They don't know what they don't know. And they're like, hey, you got to make my kid stronger. He has to bench 315. He's a sophomore in high school. It's just, he's not with his other guys. And, the biggest thing for me is to tell them it's not about strength. It's about being able to move that strength fast, right? This game has evolved. It's no longer big fat guys like me on the offensive line. They're the Lane Johnsons of the world that are 6'6", 315 and have 6-pack of abs, right? So this game has changed, and you got to be an athlete. And it's more than just pushing a lot of heavy weight. It's the overall 360 again. You got to be that athlete now. And I think we've changed a lot of behavior of parents here because of that, and they understand and it bought in because of the success we've had with it. So my pick would definitely be performance coaches for sure.
How about you, Luke?
Yeah, performance all day. I wouldn't second guess that. I think strength is a part of being a performance coach, but there's so many other things that go into it now. You have the speed side. If we are all just strength coaches, we should all just be called track coaches too. At that side. So performance, it goes speed, it goes power, it goes strength, it goes mobility, into your nutrition, everything else that comes with performance. Even on the mental side, if you come in and you're just not feeling it, or if you don't feel confident in yourself and your own abilities, mental performance is just as important as physical performance, and stress is stress. So performance coach for sure, no questions asked on that one.
That's why I'm asking everybody. I'm gathering information. I appreciate you both. I know you guys have a ton of other things to be doing, so thank you very much for coming on and sharing with our audience. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, PowerLift. PowerLift is located here in Iowa in the United States of America. I've utilized them back in 2011 when I had them at Harvard. I also had them at the University of Maryland, and then finally when I was at the University of Iowa. Their equipment is strong, it is durable, it is dependable. It's also customizable based upon whatever your needs are at your school. Check out PowerLift at the link down below.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.